Today I have another anniversary review for you. It's for the album Euphoria by Def Leppard. It was released on June 8th, 1999. It is celebrating 25 years. In this video I want to focus on Def Leppard in the 90s because we all know the 90s were pretty hard for hard rock and metal bands. Everything was grunge and alternative, and we all know Def Leppard ruled the 80s. But once the 90s came around, they started to struggle. So I'm going to talk about them, and I'll talk more in detail about Euphoria and the songs and the singles and all that good stuff. So let's get into this. Let's get into some history, but we're starting in the 90s. We all know Hysteria was one of the biggest albums ever. That album had so many hit singles, and I could do a whole video on that. I think I might have, I don't remember. But at that point, they were on top of the world. It was the early 90s, but it didn't start out too well for them because their guitarist, Steve Clark, had a very bad alcohol problem, and he died by mixing prescription drugs and alcohol in the early 90s. But then the band moved on, and then they released Adrenalize. It was a popular album, although I never thought it was as good as the two albums before it, but I kind of like it. It actually did pretty well, but in 1992, they needed a new guitarist, and they chose Vivian Campbell, who previously played in Dio and Whitesnake. Here's some interesting trivia. There were three famous guitarists who auditioned for the part: Adrian Smith, John Sykes, and Gary Hoey. I thought that was interesting, but back to the story. The band pushed on. They released a collection of B-sides and unreleased tracks called Retroactive, and they had a song on the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called Last Action Hero. It was an acoustic ballad called Two Steps Behind. Fast forward to the mid-90s, they released the album Slang, which was the band trying to play alternative rock. Though I like this album a little bit, it didn't really do that well. Some other bands trying to go back to their roots, and that brings us to the album in question, Euphoria. The album did pretty well. It charted at number 11 on the Billboard 200. It had a few hit singles. It was produced by Pete Woodruff and the band Def Leppard. It got some mixed reviews. For example, AllMusic magazine gave it 4 stars out of 5. And Stephen Thomas Erlewine of AllMusic mentioned that Euphoria is a tight, attractive album with more than its share of big hooks, strong riffs, and memorable melodies. But on the other hand, Rolling Stone only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, and Greg Kot of Rolling Stone mentioned things like the robotic drum tracks and the inhuman tone of those trademark masked vocal choruses. The first single was Promises, and this one did pretty well on some of the rock charts. One of those songs that they often play live, and it's one of their top 25 most live played songs, also included on various compilations. The song has that signature Def Leppard sound. I would say it sounds something like a song that could have been on their Hysteria album. I would say that. I thought it was very good. One of those songs that's somewhere between being a hard rock song and a power ballad. It's right in the middle, and it's also a song about relationships that sends the message, I won't make promises I can't keep. It's a pretty good song. Then there was another single called Paper Sun. Lyrically, the song is about the Omagh bombing, which occurred on August 15, 1998. Probably my favorite song on the album. It has a darker sound, but at the same time, it's very melodic. Another song that's somewhere between being a ballad and a rocker. I remember that they did a symphonic album last year called Jurassic Symphonies, and this was, I think, my favorite song from that album. This also has some of their heaviest guitar riffs in one part of the song. Third single is called Goodbye. It's a typical power ballad. People in the comments saying it was about Steve Clark, but I found a quote from Joe Elliott, so let me read that. It's not about saying goodbye, it's more about you don't have to say goodbye. In other words, whether you've lost somebody you've loved physically, or whether you've just split up with them, or they've died, or you've parted company with them, in whatever way, they're always there if you want them. Let's talk about some of the album cuts. The album opens with a song called Demolition Man. It's a very energetic rock song that has that signature Def Leppard sound, such as the catchy chorus and the backing vocals. There's some interesting bits of trivia with the song as well. The title of the song is influenced by the line in Def Leppard's biggest hit, Pour Some Sugar on Me. And the song line goes, Demolition Woman, can I be your man? Here's some more trivia. The guitar solo at the end of the song was played by Formula One driver Damon Hill. The band kept running into him at parties, and they would talk about his guitar playing. So they invited him to play in the album. The next album cut is called Back in Your Face. This reminded me of someone like glam rock of the 70s. It had that energetic type of sound. The next album cut was very different. It's called All Night, and it was a very funky song. It's almost like Prince meets Def Leppard. The song was just okay for me. It was a different type of sound for the band, but Not sure if it fit the band. Next song is called It's Only Love, and it's a rock song with some acoustic guitars. Had some nice harmonies. The intro reminded me of the Beatles at first. It's a typical ballad from the band. Lyrically, it's a typical love song. It's another one that's just okay. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't list it amongst my favorites. Now for another song I've always liked. It's called 21st Century, Sha La 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 Girl. It's one of the heavier ones. Has somewhat of an industrial or electric sound. It was kind of a strange song. It was like the band took some influence from new wave and industrial, but we were able to keep their signature sound. I can see some people not liking this. Joe Elliott raps the verses, but I like it. It's very spacey and futuristic, and it also has a really cool guitar solo by Vivian Campbell. Next is another semi-ballad called To Be Alive. The song's about someone who feels like the world is not paying attention to him. The person has a partner who tries to comfort him, but the problem is she feels like he is hiding something from her. The chorus says that at every moment it's good to be alive, even if things aren't perfect. The song ends with a person wanting to hold on to the feeling of being alive. This was one of those songs that was not too bad. I would not say it's one of the most memorable songs in the album, but they've had better ballads. For me, it was just okay. And here's some more trivia. The song was first recorded by Vivian Campbell's band called Clock, but then re-recorded and rewritten for Def Leppard. One of the heavy tracks in this one is called Disintegrate. It's like some post-punk from the early 80s, but with more of a heavy metal influence. I think this is one of the most underrated tracks. The song is also an instrumental, and the first time the band had an instrumental on their album since High and Dry from 1981. For an album that's very hit and miss, this is one of the hidden gems on the album. The next song is called Guilty, and this one has a typical Def Leppard sound. I thought this one was just okay. Supposedly the song is about confessing one's infidelity and asking for forgiveness while acknowledging the pain that's been inflicted on a loved one. But I guess that can be open to interpretation. This was another one of those songs that sounds like it could have been on their Hysteria album. Next song was called Day After Day. This one has a darker sound. It's one of their slow and dark ballads. I thought it was pretty good. The song still sounded like Def Leppard with the typical backing vocals in the chorus. But I think the main guitar riff could have been used to make a heavier song, and that would have sounded at home on one of their earlier albums like High and Dry or On Through the Night. The lyrics are about personal transformation, but in the face of darkness with past lies and beliefs. The last song is called Kings of Oblivion. The first part of the song reminded me of The Who. Joe Elliott used some higher register vocals, and some of it sounded like his vocals from either High and Dry or On Through the Night. The song in general had that typical late 80s sound for the band. A melodic pop song, but still had an energetic rhythm section. The lyrics are about universal themes of struggle, perseverance, and the human condition. The guitar playing was very good. Some of it reminded me of Brian May of Queen. Overall, the song was not too bad. And now for my final thoughts. I thought it was a hit and miss type of album. It really had some good tracks such as Promises, Demolition Man, Paper Sun, Disintegrate, and 21st Century, Sha La 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 Girl. But that's only 5 of the 13 songs that I liked. The rest of the songs, I could either take them or leave them. For that reason, I think this album sits somewhere in the middle of their discography. I know they tried to bring back the sound of Hysteria and Pyromania, but only a few songs succeeded. And to be honest, the songs that I liked had more of an experimental sound. I would say their self-titled album from 2014 was better than this. And on that album, they were able to capture the sound they were looking for. But this is all my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you like this album? Or is it just hit and miss for me, like it was for me? Let me know in the comments. Check out my review of Adrenalize. I did that one a few years ago. It celebrated its 30th anniversary. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.